Hello and welcome to this edition of Weather to Watch. It's Wednesday, the 15th of July, halfway through the month just about. We've got some really interesting weather going on, and we'll get right into it. So first of all, let's take a look at the visible satellite loop. I say interesting weather. Now, most of the country is actually pretty quiet, pretty warm. This is all still very hot weather up here and increasingly down into the middle Atlantic states. We've got, if you look at the 500 millibar level, this very, very broad inverted trough that is kind of hanging over Texas, especially. That's where the primary low pressure area is a lot. But just generally speaking, this whole area is just kind of disturbed. It's led to some incredible rainfall totals, and I'll share that with you here in a minute, and a tornado report of all things. And then this is where the main jet stream flow is. This swept through New England with a little bit of severe weather last night. And a lot of this right here is not clouds, but it actually turns out it is smoke from mostly Canadian wildfires, forest fires that are burning, which happens a lot in the summer months when that ridge builds northward and dries things out. There's a lot of forest land up there. Of course, it would be impossible to manage all that. It's a very sparsely populated area, but nevertheless, smoke coming in from Canada across the northern plains, Great Lakes, and into New England is a pretty common summer occurrence. Nevertheless, this is getting kind of crazy. This is the look here from the Mackinac Bridge this morning at about 7:44. You can barely see the bridge from the land. The visibilities were greatly reduced, and they were actually asking drivers to go about 20 miles per hour over that bridge. That's the bridge that connects the lower peninsula of Michigan to the upper peninsula of Michigan. There are basically air quality alerts in effect for all of Wisconsin, a good chunk of Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, all of Michigan, really good chunk of Indiana, and a little more sparse over Ohio, but also through much of New York, Pennsylvania. This includes big cities like, New York and Philadelphia, that area, and also Washington, D.C. Now let's go south. Let's take a look at this. This is a large flood watch, and in here you have flood warnings going on from San Antonio, basically westward, and there's a good reason why. Here is the radar estimation this morning. So a radar rain accumulation is where they take a look at the entire column and they try to estimate the rainfall by adding up all the layers. It's usually pretty accurate, at least spatially. Maybe not as accurate on the ground, but I happen to think these are pretty accurate. These little darker blotches right here are 20-inch plus totals. So pretty incredible, really. This was snapped at 10:24 this morning. It's been raining in some of those areas since then. And then speaking of this morning, they had a tornado in San Antonio. Now, this is a supercell that is able to develop. And now I always talk about wind shear. So in that particular scenario, there isn't enough bulk shear to really hold it together. But these types of tornadoes that happen in very moist environments, where the low level of the thunderstorm or the rain shower is so close to the ground, all you need is some sort of boundary, and you can get a spin above a tornado pretty readily, actually. And it's pretty isolated, but still caused quite a bit of damage this morning in San Antonio. Let's go and take a look now at what this next week holds. And this was run on Monday, so we're still, we're 2 days into this, but still generally the mean position of this upper level high is going to be over the Nebraska and South Dakota, Iowa area for the next remaining 5 days of this. And the temperature anomalies are going to be very, very high, of course, in this area here where the heat advisories are in effect. And this is all rain-cooled air down here in Texas. Monsoonal flow moisture that comes in from this direction, and then when you have that upper level low aloft, that really just kind of seals the deal and makes sure that the rain is going to be around, slow-moving, very efficient rain-producing cells down there. And the precipitation rate anomaly for that period, of course, is striking both in Texas, in Old Mexico, and getting up into the Intermountain West as far north as Montana. Let's take a look at Thursday's weather map for the country. We do have a cool front that moved through New England, cooled things down up there. A little bit of an attempt to get a cold front through the Great Lakes, but the heat is still on. These fronts are all pretty weak and not really supported, at least not yet, by the jet stream flow. So still pretty hot in South Dakota, temperatures well into the 90s, if not the 100s. In terms of showers, thunderstorms, a lot of the country is going to see some scattered activity. So the way this is plotted out, it's not continuous rain. That would be solid. This is more scattered, 30 to 40% type probabilities, but a lot of it. And if we take a look at Thursday's both flood and severe weather risk, we still have some flooding concerns here and a little patch of severe weather there in Montana. Let's take a look at that first. So we have a level 2 out of 5 as listed by the Storm Prediction Center up in Helena. Missoula, Bozeman, Montana. So most of that's going to be wind damage, most likely, maybe a little bit of hail. And then still for tomorrow, there's a high risk still tonight down there in the hill country and areas west. But for tomorrow, there's still a moderate risk that the rain will continue to exacerbate the problems down there to the west and slightly northwest of San Antonio. The map for Friday does show this front is kind of trying to move now, and it's part of a theme that we're going to see here. We got a reinforcing shot of cool air in the northern lakes and into parts of New England, so a little cooler weather there. Notice that the heat is starting to build here from Virginia southward to Florida. In terms of precipitation, a pretty typical summer map where we get a smattering of showers and thunderstorms everywhere. Basically, the severe weather will go away on Friday, but there still will be some flooding concerns down in this area here, from just east of Vegas through Phoenix and Tucson to El Paso and through parts of West Texas. The heavy rain hazard is exactly as I just showed you. That area in yellow has a slight risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded, at least a 15%, about a 15 to a 40% chance that will happen down there. Now, this is the Weather Prediction Center's rainfall for the next 3 days, and this is going to underestimate. Remember, I showed you those 10, 20-inch totals? So this model and these forecasters are probably not going to pull the trigger on that, but they're even talking about tonight that some isolated areas to the west of San Antonio may still get an additional 10 to 20. That would not show up on a map like this. That's a very, very localized forecast. But you can still clearly see the yellow is 4, that darker color is 6. So 4 to 6 inch rain totals, generally speaking, for the next 3 days in that exact same hazard area. Now, if we go to the period Saturday through Wednesday, this kind of leaves Texas alone increasingly and starts to spread again with that monsoon flow up through, all the way up into Montana, really. This is a heavy rain hazard for that period. For 1 day of that, we go back out east in this area from New York through Pennsylvania, the middle Appalachian states, and parts of the Great Lakes states will have some heavy rain hazards on Saturday. Then the heat. This was so big I had to break it into two, but basically around the 18th, it ends here and then just kind of slips this way with time. And if we continue this map, so that's Saturday through Monday, and then this period is kind of Tuesday through Wednesday from here through this area here. So the heat gets suppressed. As you can see, there's a big gap in it from Alabama north to the Great Lakes and up into New England. Now let's go 2 weeks out and take a look at this same anomaly. I wanted to show you this because it flips quite substantially. The high is going to be over here now. This is the beginning on the 20th of July. So it'll basically be starting this coming Monday. And look at this trough of low pressure that develops in the Great Lakes and in New England. So that's important because it really tones down the temperature anomalies. In fact, kind of reverses them, except for maybe some return flow on the backside of some of these highs, maybe a little bit above normal in the part of the Great Plains, Missouri River Valley. But most of this map here is showing a substantial reduction, not only in the extreme above normal temperatures and the record-breaking stuff, but actually to a slightly below normal pattern. That's all because of that mean jet stream flow that's forecast. So the week, again, starting this coming Monday, shows rain, a little bit more rainy in the northeast. That's in keeping with that map I just showed you for the weekend. And then again, the Intermountain West, which you could use some rain, is forecast to maybe have their rates a little bit higher. Extreme heat chances now through the 23rd through the 29th is basically giving up on the northern plains and the northeastern U.S. and is focusing now from Oklahoma down through Louisiana, parts of Arkansas. Moderate means about 40 to 60% chance of extreme heat in those areas. On the rainfall side of things, again, it's going to be in the Four Corners area up to Wyoming maybe, with a moderate 40 to 60% chance of heavy rain chances through the high desert of Colorado and through a little sliver of Arizona. And then finally, we'll show you the supercell composite. This is for the 22nd through the 28th, about that same period. Looks like because of the suppression of the more stable air here, we'll get a frontal boundary set up here and maybe some thunderstorms traveling along that through that period.